Convicted felon and sexual abuser Donald Trump won the White House again, beating Kamala Harris across all swing states and won the popular vote for the first time. Now the dust has settled, Desiree. How are you feeling?
I mean, it's hard to feel any more hopeless than I did in 2016, except for the fact that like everybody I know who is liberal feels that way. There was a very stark sort of reaction to like, let's get back in there and fight, because it's like, it doesn't work. Please stop telling us to do the same thing that has clearly been proven not to work. Like Kamala did have one thing right. We're not going back. And like in terms of we're not going back to politics the way they used to work. Like, you know, and ultimately we were the establishment in this case. I mean, Brian Eno called this right after the 2020 election and saying basically, I don't know why people are celebrating, you know, the Democrats are going to have to take the heat for everything the Republicans did, because that's just like, you know, Trump was like, oh, look what I did for the economy. No, Obama did that, but nobody's going to give him any credit for that thing. Everyone's just going to be like, forget that guy. This guy's great. He leaves. There's a bunch of mess to clean up. You spend 4 years cleaning up the mess and everyone's like, how come everything's messy and expensive? No one in America knows that the American economy is the envy of the world because everybody went through the plague and also corporate greed, full stop. You know, and like nobody was able to point that out. I mean, Starma and the Labor Party and Trump did the same thing of say nothing. Trump is exceptionally good at saying nothing very loudly over and just look there, look anywhere. But essentially, it's just like say nothing and let everybody be mad at the people who are standing behind the podium right now and then come back into power. I mean, the people in my life that I know who are like, but what about the price of gas? Don't know how much gas costs everywhere else. But what about the price of cereal? Well, I mean, we don't need to eat that much cereal, but the president doesn't wake up every morning going, hey, let's make eggs $8 and cereal $9 today. Because it's like, no, those are the corporate overlords that are now in the cabinet in America.
Liz, just purely looking at this from a British perspective, the first wave of economic conversations around the budget was it was all going to be about growth. That obviously now feels completely compromised because we don't know what Trump's tariffs are going to be and what impact that will have on global trade, which again has a direct impact on the economic growth that's supposed to raise all this extra money for the Treasury to fund our public services. Do you think the Labour Party has figured out how it approaches Donald Trump now? I mean, last week we had them sort of deploying the royal family. Does anyone within the government have any sense of how to manage the special relationship?
I think what you've seen with this government so far is there was a long period of time, and we did the podcast during that period where we thought maybe they've got a plan and they're just keeping it a secret. And then during the election campaign, we were like, well, they seem like they're not really ready, but they'll obviously be ready for government. And then they got into government and we were like, oh, they're just not ready and they actually don't have a plan. Yeah. So I think when it comes to lots of things, that's they're figuring it out.
Yeah.
And I think when it comes to how to approach America, they're doing that as well.
But there has been a bit of a sort of re-nosing of Labour strategy. Like, I think they have learned a lesson from the American election result where they have understood that it's not enough to say that our economy is buoyant. If people don't feel it in their pocket, they will disregard it. Yep. Living standards in the UK are very, very low and are getting lower. So when, after 5 months in office, Starma finally declared that the government had a plan and the plan is change, maybe now is the time we believe it? Or what do you think, Liz?
Does he mean literal change? Like, is the plan now for there to be more coins?
Big jars. Guys, you gotta fill them jars.
Just reverse pickpocketing every person in Britain and putting like £2 coins in everyone's pocket. Because
I think if they we should suggest policies to them and they would probably go for it at this point.
I thought there was a certain elegance to the way that you summarised the year in our perception, especially on this podcast, of the Labour Party, which is assuming that there'll be a plan, then finding out there wasn't really a plan, but assuming there'd be a plan for once they were in government, then once they're in government going... the thing that I keep returning to is when Wes Streeting announced that there would be a consultation on how to deal with the NHS. And a part of me did go, what? Hold on. Why have you not?
Not just a consultation with the public.
I know.
With the public. Is it a consultation with experts? No. It's anyone.
We're running a competition,
literally anyone.
guys. Who's got the best ideas for the NHS?
Yeah. You're going to keep it to people in the UK? No, literally anyone. Just anyone.
Whatever.
Yeah, it's like they're opening the windows in Whitehall and going, has anyone got any policy ideas out here?
Should there not... Am I being naive to assume that there should have been a plan? And should there not have been a plan that they were rolling out for the NHS?
Yes. Yes, I know it sounds like an obvious question, but yes. Yes is the answer. Shame you were at any of their meetings before the general election. A lot of UK government and how it rolls out is about the character of the person at the centre of it, and that is Keir Starmer. And I think the sense that I have got from him and what has come across is he basically... He managed a big organisation in the CPS, and he was like, I'm really great at managing things. I think I should manage the country. And so that's it. He thinks, surely let's just manage this better. And so their plan is like, make the NHS better, make the education system better. He's not really a political strategist, and he hasn't brought in any political strategists. And they've been out of office in opposition for 14 years. And so they've all got into Whitehall and been like, Jesus Christ, this doesn't work very well. Yeah. And how do we sort it all out?
And also you can't manage that into success. Like it is broken. You need someone with a new idea. And is the problem that any new idea is going to be pissing off the billionaires who are profiting off of the NHS not working as well, so that things can get privatized. Like, I mean, who has ideas that aren't going to be like, and someone's going to get rich off of this? Because that's part of the problem.
And I think as well, I mean, going back to that initial thought of, okay, 5 months later when he says change, he was saying change all along. Do we finally believe it? Well, that's the crucial word, change. Is it change? Is anything changing, or is it just managed better? And do we need managed better?
I think, look, one of the things is when you look at the 14 years of the Conservative government, it was kind of overshadowed by Brexit and Boris Johnson. And that was genuinely chaotic for the way that just the country runs. Yeah. And so having a consistent government that is just trying to get departments to run things better is actually not a bad idea, because we weren't doing it. So that is a good idea. Separately from that, I think there's disappointment within the Labour ranks and probably amongst Labour voters now as well, that there's no broader vision for shifting the way that the economy works in a way that feels fairer. So taking on things like water privatisation, right? Mm-hmm. You would think a Labour government will come in and say, okay, we'll sort that out. But they're not, their approach to that is, we'll make the regulator better.
Yes.
So it's the same.
The polls have put Labour behind Reform and the Conservatives, well, some of the polls anyway, despite the new leader, Kemi Badenoch, having nothing to say beyond picking fights with bread, if the latest story is to be believed. Last week, she declared that sandwiches aren't real food. The polls are in the gutter. The tabloids are having a field day. This week, the Daily Star rejoiced in the headline, saying that Keir Starmer is the worst Prime Minister in recent history, according to Brits. Who else would it be according to? According to Brits. So it sounds like, we have these rogue operators on the outside promising change. And of course, when you scrutinise it, that's not going to change anything unless making richer and poorer even more stark is the change you're looking for. But the fact remains, the people are not happy with Mr. Starmer.
It sounds like what you're saying is Starmer's focus has been dealing on with 2017 to 2024, which is a period post-Brexit of administrative chaos, elections, chaotic government, corruption in some cases, and mismanagement, but not actually handling structural problems that have been much more deep-seated and are also at the roots of some of this political instability.
Yeah, exactly that. And it's basically because he's not a great thinker. When you look back on some of the transformative governments, whether you liked them or not in this country, so, Margaret Thatcher, Tony Blair, they had a central kind of political and economic thesis, a thought.
At Lee in 1945. For the
At Lee in 1945, exactly, right? So they spend time, in some ways it feels quite separate from politics day to day, but it's intellectual. It's thinking about the future, a vision of a country and a world that is different from the one that you're in now, that has never been done before. So, look at Thatcher and the way that she privatised everything. And then you look at Blair and the kind of third way. We're living with the consequences of both of those kind of political theories now, but they pushed those through and made them into policies day to day. Keir Starmer's not that guy. Like, he is not that guy. He did not sit around for 10 years talking to his friends and talking to his political associates about political vision and political theory. He literally just managed a big organisation, and now he's like, I'm going to manage another one that's even bigger.
But legitimate question, because I don't know the answer, but do we think those kinds of leaders could get elected in this time? Because it does seem like it is sort of just populist leaders who come to the fore and complain about the status quo long enough to get into office and to make things worse for everyone and better for themselves. And it does feel like this particular government might be priming everybody for a big swing back to something like reform when they're in the middle of cleaning up a mess, but not actually progressing anything forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And look, I mean, it sounds like I'm kind of shitbagging here. You know, the war I'm talking about is really kind of the perfect idea of a leader, which is somebody who has a great vision and then can also create, you know, make that happen day to day. That's a really difficult thing to do. He's a middle manager, and maybe we do need that. I don't know what that means for the next phase of British politics.